Welcome, and thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Kiana Faircloth. That's right, folks, we're back with a brand new episode of Studio 901, and we are excited to continue with the custom of spotlighting local, emerging, and established artists that are creating right here in the DMV. With us, you'll discover some of the area's greatest treasures, some of our best-kept secrets, and hear some never-before-told stories about living the creative life. And if you don't know, this show is DCTV's greatest exploration of the art that is among us. Joining me today on Studio 901 is Reginald Cyntje. Versatile recording artist Reginald Cyntje, born in Roseau, Dominica, raised on St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands, is an award-winning professional musician, composer, producer, and educator. He is active on the Washington, D.C. music scene. Currently, he leads his own groups and works as a sideman in numerous bands. He is also the founder and owner of Jegna School of Music, a school that provides music lessons, workshops, and mentoring concerts for intergenerational students. The founder and creative director of Cyntje Music, a one-stop music boutique that includes booking, curating, and assisting artists. The author of Stepping Stones, 15 Studies in Improvisation, and a professor of music at Montgomery College. He has toured the U.S., Europe, and the Caribbean and appeared on over 20 recordings, including 4 of his own. Welcome to Studio 901, Reginald Cyntje.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Right off the bat, we always ask our guests 2 questions. First of all, what age did you start being creative and making music?
I'm not sure what age I started being creative. I think it was probably before 12. My father brought home my uncle's piano, and he showed me that he started showing me some songs on the piano. I was like, man, that's interesting. I want to do that. But it was not until the age of 12 that I really started playing music, playing the trombone.
Okay.
Yeah.
What made you pick up the trombone initially, coming from piano?
Well, I didn't necessarily play piano. I didn't really learn anything about the piano. I just toyed around with the piano, to be honest. But in the 6th grade, I was walking down the hall, and I saw this older kid demonstrating what became known as a trombone. I didn't know what it was. I was like, what's this funny looking instrument, right? So I saw this older kid demonstrating the trombone, and then shortly after that, there was my neighborhood friend was playing trombone, and his older brother played trombone in a calypso band. And then my cousin started playing the trombone, and he was like, man, you should check out this instrument. It's great. So when I got to the 7th grade, I saw there was band on my schedule. And so when I went to band class the first day, it came a time where we had to pick our instruments. So the girls went towards flutes, clarinets, and some played saxophones. The boys was saxophones, trumpets, and drums. And I decided to pick the instrument that no one wanted to play, which was a trombone. So that started it at the age of 12.
So it was kind of all around you, trombone was calling your name,
That's right.
if you will.
Pretty much.
Okay, so from there, who would you say have been your inspirations from when you first picked it up in 7th grade up until now? Who first inspired you?
I think what inspired me at first was the instant gratification, the fact that I could express any given emotion. So like when I was upset, I could play music. When I was happy, I could play music. Then shortly after that, I met this guy named Dr. Leroy Trotman. I went to the summer band program, and he really encouraged me to play. So he approached my father about me taking private lessons. And I didn't find out until years later the deal they made. So the deal was basically this. If I showed up to private lessons every Saturday morning prepared, my lessons would be free.
Wow.
And if I showed up unprepared, then we'll start talking about money. So I never paid for lessons for about 4 or 5 years. The entire time I studied with him.
Wow, the entire time.
The entire time. And then I had a community of folks that looked out for me. So I grew up on an island in the Virgin Islands, St. Thomas. So I had jazz musicians that looked out for me. For example, when I started playing jazz, my father met with this guy named Joe Ramsey, and Joe Ramsey said, well, I'll take him home after the gig. So then Joe Ramsey invited me to sit in with his band. And then another side of things, Dr. Trotman encouraged me to play European classical music. So I was playing concertos and stuff. So on one hand, I was playing concertos. On the other hand, I was playing jazz with different jazz musicians all over the island, and then playing with the university ensemble. So it was like a community effort. So it wasn't one person that inspired me, it was the whole community that inspired me.
That's beautiful.
And the next thing was my neighbors. Like I practiced for hours at home, in my parents' home. And my neighbors will always know that I would be practicing. I would get them from school and practice for like 4 or 5 hours. First thing in the morning when I got to school.
Wait, 4 or 5 hours at
yes,
that age?
Yes.
Wow, you were exceptional.
I was serious.
You were exceptional.
So, and then when I got to high school, I would practice in the morning. So the bus arrived like at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:15 in the morning. So I'd pull up my horn and practice. So the whole school, no one came to me and complained. So directly and indirectly, I was supported by the whole community. No one never said to me, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't practice, or you're disturbing me, or that's just noise in my ear. So imagine that, like a kid, whether I was in elementary school or junior high or in high school, the whole community supported me.
Wow, that is incredible. Now, you've got a whole lot going on now.
Yes.
You've got your Reginald School of Music, you've got Cyntje Music, you're a professional musician, you're a professor, and you're a father.
Yes.
How are you doing all of this?
Time management. Time management. I remember when I was 17 years old, I thought I didn't have enough time to practice. I was like, between going to school and working a full-time job and practicing, it was like I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
And then once I became a father, I was like, I actually have more time than I thought. So I started time management. And the thing is that what I do is I don't go into a separate room and practice. Like I practice with my kids there. So they've been used to me practicing, so I don't have to like go into a separate room and then feel like they're disturbing me when they come and ask for something. I'm like right there in the living room, and they're like watching TV or doing homework or whatever they're doing, but it's like my practicing is a part of their day-to-day, so it's like normal, So it's just, I've always been in a community and celebrating whatever it is I'm doing through community. So in my house, I do the same thing.
Wow. So have your kids now gravitated towards music? Do they want to play as well?
Yeah, well, kind of, sort of. So my son, when he was 3 years old, they've been coming out to rehearsals with me since like, I don't know, forever, right? So my son was coming out to rehearsal and he kept asking for the trumpet from the age of 3. So he said, can I play the trumpet? And I was like, well, I'll see. I'll think about it, because I didn't want to force anything in him. So 5 years old, can I play the trumpet? So finally at the age of 7, I bought him a trumpet.
Okay.
So he's been practicing off and on. He's now 10, he'll be 11 in the summer. So he's been practicing off and on. So both my sons play trumpet now.
Awesome.
And my daughter, she's just thinking about playing music right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so she sees them practicing and she gets to the piano and starts playing. But I try not to like force music on them,
I was
because
gonna ask you,
because
awesome.
The way I fell in love with music was not because my parents said you should play music, it was because I learned that this was a great way to express myself. So I had a personal relationship with music. So if they decide to go into music, I want them to have a personal relationship with music as well.
That's a great approach.
Yeah.
You never want to be stage dad, you
Yeah,
know?
Exactly.
So you're known as a trombonist, of course, on the DC music scene and all over. Yet you're still a versatile musician. Talk to us a little bit about your versatility and what makes you this multifaceted musician, if you will.
I think what happened is I grew up on a Caribbean island, and no one said to me you're supposed to listen to one style of music. Like I teach music history, and I teach 2 different types of music history at Montgomery College. One is American popular music, and one is jazz history.
Okay.
And I always explain to the students that no one said to me I'm supposed to only listen to this style of music. And I explained to them that in the 1970s, there was this thing that happened on purpose, where the record label said, if you have a certain demographic, you're going to listen to a certain style of music so they can maximize sales. And a lot of people don't know that. They did that, right? But before that, radio stations were very diverse. You didn't have like one radio station playing one style of music. And it became very selective in the 1970s. It was actually 1969, because most black artists were very controversial due to the civil rights movement. In 1970, the radio stations and the record companies didn't want to sign controversial artists. So the radio stations changed completely. So where I grew up in the Virgin Islands, I was immune to that. So on the radio, I would hear calypso and reggae, and I would hear jazz, and I would hear European classical music, and I would hear salsa, and I hear all these different styles of music. So growing up, I wanted to play those different styles of music. I wanted to play Quilba music, which was the national music of the Virgin Islands, which is actually called bambula. Like similar thing what happened in the United States when the music of two different cultures collided in New Orleans. The same thing happened in the Caribbean, right?
Yeah.
So in each Caribbean island, you have, in Jamaica is Mento, in St. Thomas is Quilbe. In Jamaica, it might be called not in Jamaica, in Trinidad, it's called Kaiso, right? So you have that clash of two cultures. So for me, I grew up hearing this improvised music called Quilbe music, and playing.
Can you say that slowly?
Sure, Quilbe.
Quilbe music.
Yes. It's actually originally known as Bambula music. Bambula was an African king, and when the slaves, well, actually they weren't slaves, but you know, they were made slaves eventually. When they came to America, not to America, but to the Caribbean, they brought their music. So they call it Bambula, but then the version I decided to change it to Quilbe due to the quadrille. But I grew up listening to different styles of music and then playing those different styles of music as well. So as an adult, I just do the same thing I was doing as a child.
That leads me to my next question, actually. You know, having come from such a diverse musical background, how would you categorize yourself music-wise today?
I think for me, I'm known as a jazz musician, but the folks that I perform with know that I play different styles of music.
Yeah.
There's a reason why my music sounds a certain way, because I try to incorporate all my experiences into the music. So I try to incorporate the Quilbe music I heard growing up, the jazz I heard growing up, the salsa music, etc. And then when I first moved to DC, one of the reasons I moved to DC is because the go-go rhythm sounded so much to the calypso rhythm. You know, what you hear in the Congo drums and the calypso music, there was a lot of similarities. And then when my first gig in DC was with salsa bands. You know, so it was interesting that me known as a jazz musician, most of my work when I first came to DC was with salsa bands. So I try to just be true to my experiences.
Wow.
You know?
Awesome. Well, when we come back, we'll talk more with Reginald Cyntje about his life as a professional musician in DC. Stay right there.
In your new role, we help you help. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who once took care of you.
Welcome back to Studio 901. I'm chatting with professional musician Reginald Cyntje. Now, Reginald, so we talked about your music in the last segment, but you are also a professor, a teacher, an owner of your own music school, Jegna School of Music. Tell us how that came about for you, and have you always wanted to give back educationally?
Sure. So last segment we talked about Dr. Trotman, right? So at the age of 15, many students around the island started to notice that I was being featured in different ways. I was performing a lot, and they was wondering why was this young musician performing a lot, and they didn't realize I was practicing a lot as well.
Yeah.
So Dr. Trotman said to me, he said, you know, a lot of my students want to study with you. Why don't you start teaching? So at the age of 15, I began teaching. And I had this one student that was really into chess, and Dr. Trotman was trying to find a way to get him into playing trombone. And so he said, well, you know, he said to Dr. Trotman he wanted to study with me. So he came to study with me, and I was like, okay, he's into chess. How can I turn chess into trombone playing? So I went to read about chess, and then found a way to connect chess to playing music. And once I did that, this student is now touring with Usher and now in LA doing different recordings and stuff.
Wow.
So I found that teaching was a very interesting way of planting seeds. You know, it's a different type of activism. You know, you could take a mind and you could kind of like nurture it, but not try to dictate to that mind, but necessarily just say, I'm informing you of ways that you could be successful in life, whether you decide to do music or not.
That's right.
So I got into teaching at the age of 15.
Now, at 15, you've only been playing trombone for 2 or 3 years at this point.
Yes, yes.
So you
of
started
practice.
teaching only 2 or 3 years after you even
Yes.
picked up a trombone?
That's correct.
Wow.
Yes. So I was very serious. You know, I learned right away that if you put in the time, you could achieve great things. You know, it just takes a lot of practice. Other human beings did it, so I can do it as well.
That's right.
So shortly after that, I went to this place called Interlochen Arts Camp in Michigan. And I was there, and I was like, man, it's cold in the summer. It's like 40 degrees at night, and that was cold to me because I'm from like 80-degree weather.
That's cold for me, you know, from here.
So what happened is I'm at Interlochen, and I'm thinking to myself, this is great. We have this arts program. All these folks are coming from all over the world to study the arts. This would be perfect in the Caribbean. So a dream was born at that time. I was like, I need to open up an art school in the Virgin Islands, similar to Interlochen.
Yeah.
So I said my end goal would be opening up an art school in the Virgin Islands. A music school, then eventually becoming a full-fledged art school. In fact, in one of my classes, I wrote about this eco-friendly version of how you could create a self-sustaining art school in the Virgin Islands.
Wow.
Right?
You're exceptional. You were very exceptional.
So when some years later, I was speaking with Paul Carr, and I was telling him that, you know, eventually after I do my performing and touring, I'm planning to open up an art school in the Virgin Islands. And he turned to me and said, why are you waiting? And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, I can't really I can't get the funding to do an art school in the Virgin Islands right now. He said, why don't you start something small and build from there? So that's how that led me to create Injecting School of Music.
Awesome. Go
Yeah.
Paul Carr.
Yeah.
He planted that seed. All right.
Yeah, so I was waiting to create the school, and so he said to me, don't wait, and I decided to start the school. So I started small, and what we do is basically I have different teachers working for me, and they go out and do lessons in different areas around the DMV. We do private lessons, we also do group lessons, and then also we have mentoring concerts. So the idea behind a mentoring concert is basically this. Usually young musicians right now don't like the idea of taking lessons.
Right.
They're mostly interested in gigging. In fact, I have students that come to me right now, and the first question they ask me is about getting a gig. And I'm like, that's strange to me. So I figured that the best way to create a lesson for them is through a mentoring concert. So they're on the stage, and this is like a great way to learn. Like you're on the stage and you're performing with professional musicians, and they're mentoring you on the bandstand, and the audience come and get to witness this lesson.
Wow.
So it started out as a duet concert series. So I would have, the one we did was with Sharon Clark and this young guitar player named Elijah Cole, right, was one. And on the bandstand, Sharon was telling him about how you end a song and why is it important to end a song that way, and what you should do listening to a vocalist, and the audience is listening, and then they're asking questions as well.
Wow, so it's a very back and forth
interactive
sort of
thing. And then the student is getting a very important lesson, but on the bandstand, and both artists get paid, the student and
That's amazing.
and the teacher.
Awesome.
So it's been very successful. We had one with Taurus Mateen and Elijah Easton. We had one with Herman Burney and Deonta Childers. And we will have some more this summer with, this actually moved to a trio concept. So it will be 2 professionals and 1 up-and-coming artist. So that's the idea behind the mentoring concert series. You know, just finding different ways to inspire and educate, but something that will be effective, where someone could take something away from it.
That's an amazing concept there. Now, very quickly before we go to break,
Sure.
what seed would you plant in someone who has a passion and wants to turn it into profit? What advice would you give them?
The first thing I would say is learn as much about that dream that you have, and then find some way to bring that dream to life. Once you bring the dream to life, the money will come. Don't focus on the profit, because when you focus on the profit, you start doing things. You start, for example, let's say, and I see this a lot, like right now we have Black Lives Matter, right?
Yes.
So a lot of artists are now creating material to kind of represent that, because they're thinking about a profit. And that's insincere, right? But what if you are always about activism? What if you were always about whatever it is that you stand for? You create whatever your dream is, and then folks will then ask you, well, how much does it cost?
Great advice. Awesome. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Reginald Cyntje, so stay right there. This is Studio 901.
And I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to. My love, she keeps me warm. 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 She keeps me warm.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Love is kind. Love is patient.
Welcome back to Studio 901. I'm here with professional musician Reginald Cyntje. Now, Reginald, what does the future look like for you as a professional musician, a professor, school owner?
I think just continue doing what I'm doing, just continue performing, and hopefully that I could find different ways to touch people through music. For me, I learned that music is a very healing art form, and it's originally we were like doctors. We basically were part of the community, and we not only carried news, but we also carried a healing message, and hopefully that with my music, I could continue healing folks, either through music directly that I perform, or as a teacher, or my students going off and doing great things in the community,
It's funny that you mentioned music as a healer, because all of your CDs, the titles are love, peace, spiritual awakening, and the studies show today that doctors are now prescribing music therapy in order to heal people. Like you said, being a musician is very much like being a doctor.
Yes.
Awesome.
It's very important. Yeah.
Where can folks find out more about you and your music and everything you have going on?
Sure. Well, you could type my name into any browser. So my first name, Reginald, last name, Cyntje, or my website, reginaldcyntje.com. So once you pull it up, all information is there. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all over social media. So
Yeah, we
anywhere
want to
that's
keep up with
convenient.
you. You've got your East Coast tour coming up,
Yes.
DC Jazz Festival, right?
Yes, that's right.
And a whole lot of other things. International promotion of Spiritual Awakening.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
awesome. So do you mind, you're holding your trombone conveniently.
Yes, conveniently.
Do you mind sharing something with us?
Sure.
We'll be right back. You're watching Studio 901 only on DCTV.
When I was 6, I had one thing on my mind. When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball every chance I could. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke. Paul George, and I want you to learn the signs of a stroke fast. F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. Because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Protect the ones you love. Spot a stroke. F-A-S-T. Fast.
Thank you for tuning in to Studio 901. It's been such a treat sitting down and talking with Reginald Cyntje. He is someone without a doubt that you should keep an eye out for because he's a professional musician that's at the top of his game and is continuing to make big moves in this area and in the world. Remember, Studio 901 spotlights emerging artists from all over the DMV that are creating and performing right in our own backyard. If you want to find out more about what you saw today, hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at YourDCTV, or visit our website, dctv.org. Before you leave, I want to leave you with this quote from Irish playwright, novelist, essayist, and poet Oscar Wilde. Art is the most intense mode of individualism that the world has known. Join us for another episode of Studio 901, where we just might spotlight you. I'm Kiana Faircloth. See you next time.